Welcome to Hanging Out with Robert, that's me. This video is composed of things that I tinkered with throughout the day. For step-by-step detailed instructions of those tasks, you can click on the links in the comment section below. This video should contain tips and tricks of things that I've learned throughout the year. Now, I only plan on leaving this video posted for about 30 days. I hope you enjoy it. Thank you very much for watching. Back on my old Droid phone. I don't know what it is, a Turbo, I guess. I was using this a year and a half ago. Back on it because my wife's phone, man, it had no sound, almost at all. Anyway, I got a couple of contacts today. People jump in time. You can't do that with these white block engines. One of them said he's been following me for 10 years. I only been doing this for about 4, so he must have watched every video 2.5 times. At any rate, he bought an 850 a couple months ago, ignored the post-purchase video, jumped time a few days ago, went and bought a bunch of timing belt parts, put that on, tried this, tried that, tried that, tried this. That is not going to work until you pull that head and replace those valves or install another head. Don't waste your time working on the timing on a car, a white block Volvo that has jumped time, or any interference car that has jumped time. The valves are crushed. It's over. Do you and me a favor and move on or pull that head. Man, it is cold today. It's afternoon and it's 33 degrees. Our altitude plays a part of that here in the Southwest. We're at like 5,700 feet, something like that. So, I'm not going to be working on Queen Bee until it warms up. I need at least to be 45 out here to be comfortable. So anything under that is kind of a no-no for me. Sorry, I just don't feel up to freezing today. So I'm going to run a couple errands, get over to the shop, pull a head off the block of that old engine that was in Queen Bee so that I can discard that block. Maybe I'll do a timing belt broke video there, and maybe people can watch that and not try to convince me that there's hope for that head when that timing belt jumps. Today I'm going to take the head off of the engine that was in Queen Bee. As you can see, the timing belt still intact. Rear timing cover looks to be in good shape. Had some kind of oil or something leaking down here. Let me get the light on. So it looks like the water pump may have been seeping a little bit. It looks like it has the original water pump on it. Has a bolt missing in the water pump. Not sure what that's about. I don't think I took that off. Nonetheless, it looks like it has an original idler. At least the style is. Original tensioner. Not leaking any grease or not much. The tensioner there looks like it may have been leaking. This was unfortunately a situation that was probably ready to cut loose. So anyway, threw a rod through the block. We're going to salvage the head, turbo head, and scrap the block. When you're pulling the head, there's really no point to set your timing because you're pulling the head. Just get this stuff loose. Get the timing belt off of the cams. And then pull ahead. You just have to set the timing on the cams and the crank before you bolt the head back on. So I just went on ahead, pulled the timing loose. Now I'm going to go ahead and remove all these bolts and pull these cams out of here, bust the head bolts loose. Time for the 40 bolts. I have all the bolts loose. Now I need to get the pry points, pop the cover loose, pull the cams up, and get those head bolts out. They actually have a tool for this. put it where the spreader is, squeeze it together, pops the cover up. Put it in the pry points. When you squeeze it, it breaks it loose. So let me go ahead and lift this off. When you lift it off, you got to make sure that you take the cams or leave them, because you don't want them to lift up from the back and crack your journals. These are in good shape. If you mess that up, it'll crack the journals and they'll be in bad shape. Sorry this camera takes so long to focus. So let me break these head bolts loose and get this out of here. I'm also going to turn that, lift it out, get it out of the way. If you don't know, the head bolts should be broken loose from outside in, staggering right to left, a quarter turn at a time until they're loose, so you don't work the head. And then once all of them are loose, go ahead and pull all the bolts out, break it loose at the breaking points, and lift it off of the block. All the bolts are loose. Now it's time to pull them all the way out. If you don't have them all the way out, they can fight you when you try to lift the head off the block. So make sure you pull them all the way out, one by one. Get them all out where you can see them, or you may have issues getting this head separated from the block. Not half out, all the way out. See, there it is. I got one right there that's not loose all the way. Now that the bolts are all the way out, I'm going to set them aside, and I'm going to use this mallet to hit and knock the head loose from the block, or use the pry points, or use brute strength, whatever works for you. I lifted the head and was wondering why I have valve piston contact here. These valves, or pistons I should say, should have notches up here, which is normal for the exhaust valves to clear. But then I had bruises and marks up here for the intake side. And then I remember that this thing through this rod, and it pushes the rod up, and when the rod comes up, when the valves open up, when the crank is cams are still turning, it will bend the valves on that cylinder. So if you ever throw a rod, remember you gotta check those valves on the one that the rod was thrown on. Now that I have the head off of this engine that I threw the rod on Queen Bee, I'm now going to make a special video for the people that keep asking me what they can do to get the timing back on after the car throws a timing belt and they put it back together. Well, if you have a interference engine, which all of these white block Volvos are, 850s, 960s, S40s, V40s, XC90s, blah blah, on and on. And if you have any other kind of vehicle that has an interference engine, you just can't put a timing belt back on there, put it in time, and expect the car to run. Reason why? The valves have been bent, the head is destroyed, and if you tried enough times, you may have even destroyed some pistons. Here I have an engine block that the cylinder head has been removed from. It has pistons in different positions. What you need to know is, at some point, each piston becomes top of its stroke, which some people call top dead center, and that happens for every cylinder in the car. This is a 5-cylinder engine. So when this piston is all the way up, the valves on that cylinder need to be closed so that they don't contact the piston. When your timing belt is properly installed and the cams and the head are all hooked up, all of this stuff is synchronized so that when your piston comes up, your valves are closed, causing compression, allowing for your firing to happen and your car to run. If this timing belt comes off while the engine is running, 99 times out of 100, the car has engine piston to valve contact and the valves are bent. That's if you have an interference engine. If you want to know if the engine in your car is an interference engine, go to a website that sells timing belt parts, like Parts Geek or something like that. Try to order timing belt parts, and it will have a notation whether or not the engine is of the interference clearance type. If it's an interference engine and that timing belt breaks while that car is running, or it comes off the cam, or it comes off the water pump, or an idler breaks, or a tensioner breaks, and that car loses time, those valves are damaged and the car will no longer run properly until that head is rebuilt. So, let's say for instance that the car jumped time and it stalls. Your first knee-jerk reaction is going to be to try to restart it. If you try to restart it and this timing belt is not on everything properly, the engine is out of sync, the pistons will come up and collide with open valves, thus doing more damage or confirming and finishing off the damage that was done when the timing jumped. So, if you had a car jump time, it stalled, you try to start it, there is no need to contact me because I'm just going to tell you the same thing. Your car jumped time. It's an interference engine. It's over. Stop wishing, hoping, praying, guessing, spending any other time on trying to get that car to run short of pulling that head off and replacing it with a good head or replacing all the bent valves in that head. There's no ands ifs about it, people. If the vehicle has an interference engine, damage is done. I am contacted almost daily with people that for some odd reason didn't make sure that their timing belt service was complete. The timing belt came loose. Either teeth came out of the belt broke, the water pump seized, the tensioner seized, the idler seized, and all of a sudden, the car jumped time. The car stalled or it won't start. If it won't start, you check for compression. If you have no compression, it's over. The head needs to be repaired or replaced. Now, I get no joy or pleasure of being the bearer of this bad news. However, it does you no good and me no good to pussyfoot around with the facts. So when you call me, it's going to be quick, cold, and simple. The head is damaged. The head is destroyed. Don't spend time replacing the water pump, replacing the tensioner, idler, belt. It's all a waste of time and waste of money. What you need to be doing is focusing that time on getting that head off so you can get it replaced, getting it to a shop so they can do it for you, or just cutting bait and calling a wrecker and parting the car out, selling it for spare parts, or just getting it crushed at the salvage yard. I wish I had better news. I simply don't. Here is the cylinder head that I just pulled off of that block. What I'm going to do now is set the cams back in place. I'm going to draw the head down with the cam drawdown tools, and I'm going to let you see how far the valves open up when this stuff is in synchronization and the valves open at whatever position. I put in the head drawdown tools. This will simulate the head pretty much being installed with all the screws down. So I'm going to show you the bottom of this cylinder head so you can see the valves open and close at pretty much time position. This is very close to being timed. Looking at the bottom of the head, it looks like the valves on number 1 cylinder are closed. Number 2 has intake valves open. Number 3 looks like intakes. and exhaust are open a little bit. Number 4, intake valves are open. Number 5, exhaust valves are open. Now if you look on the angle, these are actually going to protrude out. That is protruding out there. So I'm also going to turn it, see if I can open them any wider than they are. I'm going to turn the cams. At this position, I got an intake valve probably all the way open. You see how far they stick out from the bottom of the head? If that piston is all the way up, it's going to hit. There's no ands, ifs, or buts about it. Even here, you can see where the piston on the one that broke came up and hit the bottom of the head. I'm going to try to get an exhaust valve open a little more than that. At this position, an exhaust valve is all the way open, and you can see how much they protrude into the piston area. Just a little bit, but that little bit is enough for it to bend the valves. Now these valves are actually bent. You really can't tell, but they are. If I pour coolant in through that hole, the coolant will leak out, because those valves made contact with the piston when the rod broke. Another thing you have to understand and know, when this car is running and you're going at 1,000 revolutions per minute at idle, this is turning 2 full revolutions. So if you're driving down the road at 2,000 RPMs, this is turning 4,000 times. 4,000 times divided by 60, I don't know what the magic number is, but if this belt breaks, it's going to have a centrifugal force, and now all that part is going to continue to turn for a second or two. That second or two is enough time for that piston, or all of those pistons, to come up, let's just say 30 times, to make contact with the valves and bend them. So there is no escaping this. If you have an interference engine and this car jumps time, there's no way of telling. If the car stalls, it's over. If you try to start it, it's really over. Do yourself a favor and get your timing belt serviced with good quality parts. That brings me to another point of this video. When you replace your timing belt, your water pump, your tensioner roller, or your idler, do not use cheap, inexpensive eBay parts. You need to find the best quality parts you can find, so that when you have this service done, it doesn't fall apart before the schedule. The schedule on my car is 70,000 miles. The schedule on most cars is 100,000 miles. If you don't get parts that are quality enough to last 10 years or that 100,000 miles, you are going to be sadly sitting on the side of the road with a busted timing belt situation. I have talked to numerous people that got a full timing belt kit off of eBay for $70. They're excited, they're happy, until 2 years into it, and 30,000 miles later, one of these parts break and the timing is thrown, and you're sitting there with a blown motor. It just doesn't make any sense. Spend the $200 or $300 on OEM dealer parts or the good quality equivalent. That way you're not stuck with a bad busted timing belt. That's all I got. Hope it helps. If you feel that this information was useful, please like it and share it with your social media friends. You can subscribe to my channel so that you will get notifications of future videos that I post. You can follow me on Twitter, and if you need to contact me directly, please visit my website. And if you have any questions, leave them below, and someone or myself will reply to them. Again, thank you very much for watching.